The envelope was wrapped in gold foil. It sat right next to the roast turkey. Elena reached for it, her hands trembling, thinking her husband Sterling had finally bought her the apology gift she deserved after a hard year. But when she tore open the seal, it wasn't a deed to a house or a diamond necklace. It was a divorce filing. The timestamp read 9:00 a.m. Christmas morning. But the worst part wasn't the papers. It was the sound that followed. As her heart shattered, her mother-in-law didn't gasp. She raised her champagne flute, and the whole family started to cheer. They thought they had broken her. They had no idea they just handed the woman who knew all their darkest secrets the weapon she needed to destroy them. This is the story of the Christmas betrayal. The snow was falling heavily over the sprawling Blackwood estate in the Hamptons. From the outside, the mansion looked like a Christmas card come to life. Massive wreaths hung from the 12-foot oak doors, and the windows glowed with the warmth of 1,000 fairy lights. But inside, the air was cold enough to freeze breath. Elena adjusted the hem of her velvet dress, catching her reflection in the hallway mirror. She looked tired. At 32, she was beautiful, with sharp, intelligent eyes and dark hair, but the last 5 years of marriage to Sterling Blackwood had etched fine lines of exhaustion around her mouth. "Elena!" The sharp voice of Beatrice Blackwood, the matriarch of the family, cut through the silence. "The caterers are asking where the vintage Bordeaux is. Don't tell me you misplaced a $5,000 bottle of wine again." Elena took a deep breath, plastering on a smile as she walked into the dining room. "It's decanting in the pantry, Beatrice, just as you asked." Beatrice, a woman who wore pearls like armor and viewed empathy as a character flaw, sniffed dismissively. "Well, hurry it up. Camilla is thirsty." Elena's stomach tightened at the mention of the name. Camilla Vance, the daughter of a senator, blonde, leggy, and possessing a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. She had been Sterling's childhood sweetheart, the one the family always wanted him to marry. For the last 6 months, Camilla had been at every family dinner, every gala, and now she was seated at the right hand of Elena's husband on Christmas Day. Elena walked into the dining room, placing the crystal decanter on the table. The room was filled with the Blackwood clan Sterling's arrogant brother Preston, his venomous sister Charlotte, and his father Arthur, who was too busy checking stocks on his phone to acknowledge anyone. And there was Sterling, her husband. He was handsome, with the kind of jawline that sold luxury watches, but his eyes were cowardly. He wouldn't meet Elena's gaze. He was too busy pouring wine for Camilla, his hand lingering on her shoulder a second too long. "Thank you, Elena," Camilla said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "You're so good at domestic things. I always say everyone has their station in life." Charlotte giggled behind her napkin. "Ideally, the help stays in the kitchen, though." Elena gripped the back of her chair, her knuckles turning white. "I am his wife, Charlotte, not the help." "For now," Beatrice muttered loud enough for the table to hear. Elena sat down. She had brought the company back from the brink of bankruptcy 2 years ago. She had stayed up for 3 nights straight, rewriting the coding architecture for Blackwood Tech when their lead developer quit. She had balanced their personal books when Sterling gambled away $250,000 in Macau. She was the spine of this family, but to them she was still just the scholarship girl from Ohio who trapped their golden boy. The dinner was a blur of insults disguised as jokes. They talked about vacations Elena wasn't invited to. They reminisced about parties that happened before she was in the picture. Finally, it was time for gifts. The Blackwoods didn't do sentimental. They did expensive. Rolex's keys to new Porsche's stocks. Elena had saved for months to buy Sterling a rare first-edition book by his favorite author. She placed it gently in front of him. He didn't even unwrap it. He just pushed it to the side. "I have a gift for you, Elena," Sterling said. His voice was steady, but his leg was bouncing under the table, a nervous tic she knew well. He pulled a thick manila envelope from under his chair. It wasn't wrapped. It had the logo of Whitmore Stone and Associates, the most aggressive divorce firm in New York City, embossed on the corner. The room went silent. The only sound was the crackling of the fireplace. "What is this?" Elena whispered, her blood running cold. "Open it." Beatrice commanded, her eyes gleaming with predatory delight. Elena opened the flap. She pulled out the document. The bold letters at the top swam before her eyes: Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. "Merry Christmas," Sterling said, finally looking at her. His eyes were devoid of love. They were cold, hard flint. "I want you out of the house by tonight. The prenup is ironclad. You get the car, your clothes, and whatever is in your personal savings account. Nothing else." Elena felt like she had been punched in the throat. "Sterling, we're trying for a baby. We just talked about booking the fertility clinic last week." "I was lying," Sterling said flatly. He reached out and took Camilla's hand, interlacing their fingers on top of the white tablecloth. "Camilla and we realized we wasted enough time. She's pregnant, Elena. She's carrying the heir this family actually wants." The shock was so physical, Elena nearly fell out of her chair. She looked at Camilla, who was smirking, resting a hand protectively over her flat stomach. "It's a boy," Camilla whispered. Elena looked around the table, begging for someone to show an ounce of decency. Arthur Preston. Even the staff. But then it happened. Beatrice let out a short, sharp laugh. She raised her glass. "To the future," she shouted. "To finally taking out the trash." "Hear, hear," Preston roared, slamming his hand on the table. "About time," Charlotte cheered. The whole table erupted. They were clapping. They were toasting. They were cheering for the destruction of her life. Sterling was smiling, a weak, relieved smile, like a child who had finally pleased his mommy. Elena stood up. Her legs felt like jelly, but she forced them to hold her weight. She looked at the man she had devoted 5 years to. The man she had saved. "You're cheering," Elena said, her voice trembling but gaining volume. "You're cheering because you think I'm nothing. You think I'm just a placeholder." "You were a mistake, dear," Beatrice said, sipping her wine. "A clerical error we've finally corrected. Now run along. Security will escort you out. Don't try to take the silver." Elena looked at the divorce papers in her hand. She looked at the date. December 25th. They had planned this to maximize the cruelty. They wanted her broken. They wanted her to leave crying, making a scene, proving she was the trash they believed her to be. Something inside Elena snapped. But it wasn't a break. It was a fusion. The sadness evaporated, replaced by a cold nuclear rage. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She calmly folded the papers and placed them back in the envelope. She looked at Arthur Blackwood, the silent father. "Arthur, did you check the P&L statements for the logistics division this morning?" Arthur frowned, confused by the pivot. "What, no? It's Christmas." "You should," Elena said enigmatically. She turned to Sterling. "And you? You think the prenup saves you? You think Whitmore Stone and Associates can untangle the web I built?" "Go away, Elena," Sterling scoffed. "You're embarrassing yourself." Elena picked up her purse. She walked to the door, the sound of her heels clicking rhythmically on the marble floor. At the archway, she stopped and turned back. The cheering had died down, replaced by a confused tension. "I'll leave," Elena said, her voice carrying through the hall. "But remember this moment. Remember the taste of that champagne. Because it's the last time any of you will taste victory. By next Christmas, none of you will be sitting at this table." "Get out!" Beatrice shrieked. Elena walked out into the snow. She didn't have a coat. She didn't have a ride. She walked down the long, winding driveway of the Blackwood estate, the cold biting into her skin. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers were numb, but she dialed a number she hadn't used in 3 years. It rang twice. "Hello?" A deep, gravelly voice answered. "Elena, is everything okay?" "No, Marcus," Elena said, staring back at the glowing mansion on the hill. "Initiate Protocol 0. They triggered the clause." "Are you sure?" the voice asked, sounding stunned. "That will burn it all down. Sterling the family, the legacy. There's no coming back." "I know," Elena said, watching a snowflake melt on her engagement ring, a ring she twisted off her finger and hurled into the deep snowbank. "Burn it. Burn it all." 3 months had passed since that night in the snow. Elena was living in a small studio apartment in downtown Chicago. It was a far cry from the Hamptons, but it was hers. It smelled of stale coffee and old books, but to Elena, it smelled like freedom. And war. She sat in front of 3 monitors, her eyes scanning lines of complex code and bank ledgers. On the wall behind her was a whiteboard covered in a chaotic web of names, dates, and dollar amounts. At the center of the web was a photo of the Blackwood family. A knock came at the door. Elena didn't flinch. She knew who it was. She unlocked the door to reveal Marcus Thorne. Marcus wasn't just a lawyer. He was a forensic accountant and a corporate shark who made other sharks look like goldfish. He was also the only friend Elena had left from her life before Sterling. "Coffee?" Elena asked, turning back to her screens. "Whiskey," Marcus replied, stepping over a stack of legal files. He looked at the whiteboard. "You've been busy. You look like you haven't slept in a week." "I sleep when they fall," Elena muttered. "What's the update on the shell companies?" Marcus sat down, opening his briefcase. "It's exactly as you said. Sterling is an idiot. When you left, he tried to take over the CFO duties himself to save money. He didn't realize that the offshore accounts holding the family's liquid assets weren't actually owned by Blackwood Holdings." Elena allowed herself a small, dark smile. "They were owned by Aurora Consulting." "Exactly," Marcus grinned. "And guess who is the sole proprietor of Aurora Consulting?" "Me," Elena said. This was the secret the Blackwoods were too arrogant to notice. 5 years ago, when the company was failing, Elena had used her own inheritance money she got from her late grandmother, a humble sum that she invested brilliantly in crypto early on to bail them out. But she didn't give them the cash directly. She knew Beatrice would never accept charity from her. So Elena had set up a consulting firm, Aurora, and loaned the Blackwoods the capital at a variable interest rate, securing the loan against their personal assets, the Hamptons estate, the private jet, and the patent for their flagship tech. Because Elena had been managing the books, she had always waived the interest payments. She kept the debt dormant. But on Christmas Day, when Sterling fired her, he effectively fired the only person keeping the debt collection at bay. "I sent the demand letter this morning," Marcus said, sliding a document across the desk. "We are calling in the loan. Full repayment. $45 million. Due in 30 days. "They don't have it," Elena said, typing rapidly. "Sterling spent the last quarter's profits on that yacht for Camilla. I saw the transaction." "So they default," Marcus shrugged. "And you foreclose?" "Not yet." Elena stopped typing. She spun her chair around. "If I foreclose now, they play the victim. They'll go to the press. They'll say the vindictive ex-wife is stealing their home. I need them to destroy themselves first. I need to dismantle their reputation." "How?" "Camilla," Elena said. She's the weak link. Elena pulled up a photo on her center monitor. It was a picture of Camilla Vance at a charity gala in Paris dated 2 years ago. She was arm in arm with a man who was definitely not Sterling. Camilla Vance isn't just a senator's daughter, Elena explained. She's a fraud. I did some digging. That pregnancy, I have a friend at the clinic she claims to be visiting. There are no records, Marcus. No ultrasound. No appointments. Marcus raised an eyebrow. She's faking it to trap him. To trap the family fortune, Elena corrected. The Vances are broke. Her father is under investigation for insider trading news that hasn't broken yet. Camilla needs the Blackwood name to shield her family's assets before the feds freeze everything. Jesus, Marcus whispered. And the Blackwoods walked right into it. They cheered for it, Elena reminded him coldly. They cheered for their own executioner because she was blonde and had the right last name. Elena stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the rainy Chicago streets. Step 1 is the business. Sterling is presenting the Q1 earnings report to the board next week. He thinks he's going to announce record growth because of a new government contract. Let me guess, Marcus said. There is no contract. Oh, there was, Elena said. I negotiated it, but the contract had a key man clause. It stipulated that I had to be the lead project manager. If I was terminated, the contract would be voided immediately. Does Sterling know that? Sterling never reads the fine print, Elena said. He's going to walk into that boardroom, brag about money he doesn't have, and when the government rep stands up to correct him, it's going to be a bloodbath. Marcus laughed a dry, impressed sound. You're terrifying, you know that. I learned from the best, Elena said, thinking of Beatrice's cruel smile. Get the private jet ready, Marcus. We're going to New York. I want to be in the building when the stock price drops. The boardroom of Blackwood Holdings was located on the 50th floor, encased in floor-to-ceiling glass that offered a panoramic view of Manhattan. It was a view designed to intimidate. Today, however, the atmosphere inside was thick with nervous sweat, most of it coming from Sterling Blackwood. Elena watched the proceedings from a live feed on her tablet, sitting in a darkened SUV parked 3 blocks away. Damon sat beside her, monitoring the real-time stock tickers. He's sweating through his shirt, Damon noted dryly. The shareholders can smell fear, Sterling. Never let them see you bleed. On the screen, Sterling stood at the head of the massive mahogany table. He looked the part of the CEO custom Italian suit, perfectly coiffed hair, but his eyes were darting around the room. Seated around the table were the sharks, the board of directors, major investors, and crucially, Mr. Henderson, the liaison for the Department of Defense. As you can see, Sterling said, his voice cracking slightly before he smoothed it out. Q1 has been a transition period, but the volatility is temporary. We are projecting a 200% revenue increase by Q3, driven entirely by the launch of the Atlas Protocol. The Atlas Protocol. That was Elena's baby. It was a cybersecurity grid she had designed specifically for government contracts. Sterling, one of the board members, a gray-haired woman named Mrs. Galloway, interrupted. We've heard the projections. We want to see the contract. The stock has dipped 12% since Christmas. We were told the defense contract was signed and locked. Where is the countersignature? Sterling smiled that charming, vacuous smile that had worked on everyone except Elena. The contract is a formality, Mrs. Galloway. We have a verbal agreement. In fact, Mr. Henderson is here to confirm our partnership. Sterling gestured grandly to Mr. Henderson. The government official didn't smile. He stood up slowly, adjusting his tie. He looked at Sterling, then at the board. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, Henderson said. His voice was gravelly and echoed in the silent room. Sterling's smile faltered. Excuse me, the Department of Defense was interested in the Atlas Protocol. Henderson continued, opening a folder in front of him. Specifically, we were interested in the architecture built by your Chief Technology Officer, Elena Blackwood. Our vetting process identified her as the primary asset. She is the only one with the security clearance and the coding knowledge to maintain the grid. Elena is no longer with the company, Sterling said, a bead of sweat finally rolling down his temple. We have a new team. Cheaper, more efficient. We met your new team, Henderson said dismissively. They are incompetent. Furthermore, Clause 14B of the preliminary agreement, the key person clause, states that if Mrs. Blackwood is removed from the project without federal approval, the deal is void. The room erupted. Void, Mrs. Galloway shouted, standing up. That contract was valued at $80 million. It is void, Henderson confirmed, closing his folder. We are pulling the offer. We will not be doing business with Blackwood Holdings. Henderson walked out. The door clicked shut, sounding like a gunshot in the silence. Sterling stood frozen. He looked at his father Arthur, who was sitting in the corner. Arthur's face had turned a sickly shade of purple. Sterling, Arthur wheezed. Fix this. I can call them back, Sterling stammered. I can explain. You lied to us, Mrs. Galloway screamed. You told us the divorce wouldn't impact the business. You said she was just a secretary with a glorified title. Damon, sitting in the SUV, whistled low. And here comes the drop. On the screen, the stock chart for Blackwood Holdings BLKH began to free fall. It went from $45 a share to $38 in seconds as the news of the lost contract hit the wire. Then $30, then $22. Execute the second phase, Elena said softly. Damon tapped a key on his laptop. Back in the boardroom, the chaos was interrupted by the loud pinging of phones. Every board member looked down at their devices simultaneously. What now? Sterling yelled, losing his composure. Stop looking at your phones and listen to me. We just received a notification, Mrs. Galloway said, her face pale. A hostile takeover bid. An external firm just bought 15% of the outstanding shares in the last 10 minutes at the crashed price. Who? Sterling demanded. Who is kicking us while we're down? Mrs. Galloway looked at the screen. A firm called Aurora Consulting. Sterling froze. He knew that name. That was the firm his ex-wife had used to manage the family's private debts. But he was too stupid to connect the dots. He thought Aurora was just a shell company for the family. He didn't realize Elena was the sole signatory. This is a disaster, Arthur Blackwood groaned, clutching his chest. The margin calls. Sterling, if the stock goes below $15, the bank calls in the loans on the estate. It won't go below 15, Sterling insisted, his voice shrill. We still have the logistics division. We still have the Vance merger. Camilla's family money will inject liquidity. Elena, watching in the car, felt a cold pang of satisfaction. He's doubling down on Camilla. He has no choice, Damon said. She's his only life raft. If he admits she's a fraud, he admits he destroyed his marriage and his company for nothing. Then let's sink the raft, Elena said. Take me to the plaza. I believe Camilla is hosting her charity baby shower today. Elena checked her reflection in the rearview mirror. She wasn't wearing the drab gray suits she used to wear to appease Beatrice. She was wearing a blood-red designer dress, sharp heels, and diamond earrings she had bought with the profits from shorting her ex-husband's company. Are you ready to ruin a party? Damon asked, starting the engine. I'm not just going to ruin it, Elena said. I'm going to expose the lie that started this whole war. The grand ballroom at the Plaza Hotel was dripping in pastel blue flowers. It was the social event of the season, the Baby Blackwood shower. Even though the divorce wasn't finalized and the wedding to Camilla hadn't happened. Beatrice had insisted on this party. It was a PR move to distract from the company's plummeting stock price. "Look," the party screamed. "We are still rich. We are still happy." The dynasty continues. Camilla Vance sat on a velvet throne in the center of the room. She was wearing a flowing Grecian gown designed to accentuate a baby bump that seemed surprisingly prominent for 3 months. She was glowing laughing and accepting gifts from the elite of New York Silver Rattle's cashmere blankets, checks for trust funds. Beatrice stood by her side, looking triumphant. "A grand son," she told the wife of a banking mogul. "Finally a true heir, not like that barren waste of space Sterling was with before." Sterling was there too, drinking heavily in the corner. He looked haggard. The board meeting had been 3 days ago, and the stock was still bleeding. He needed this illusion to hold. Suddenly, the double doors at the back of the ballroom swung open. The chatter didn't stop immediately, but a wave of silence rolled through the room from back to front as people turned to see who had arrived. Elena stood in the doorway. She looked radiant, dangerous, and entirely out of place. The red dress was a violent slash of color in the sea of pastel blues. Elena, Charlotte Sterling's sister, dropped her champagne flute. It shattered, silencing the room completely. Elena walked forward. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. She walked with the confidence of a woman who owned the building. She walked straight up to the dais where Camilla sat. "You're not welcome here," Beatrice hissed, stepping in front of Camilla like a guard dog. "Security, get this woman out." "I was invited," Elena said calmly, pulling an invite from her clutch. "By the hotel management. It seems you haven't paid the bill for the venue yet, Beatrice. My firm Aurora holds the lien on this event space. Technically, you're partying in my living room." Beatrice's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Elena bypassed her and looked at Camilla. Camilla's smile was plastered on, but her eyes were terrified. She shifted in her seat, placing a hand over her stomach. "Hello, Camilla," Elena said. "You look glowing." "Leave me alone," Camilla squeaked. "You're stressing the baby." "The baby," Elena repeated. She turned to the crowd. "It's amazing, isn't it, the miracle of life, especially considering the medical impossibility of it." "What are you talking about?" Sterling demanded, stepping forward, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. "Get out, Elena. You're just jealous because you couldn't give me a son." "Is that what she told you?" Elena asked. She signaled to the back of the room. Damon walked in. He wasn't alone. Walking beside him was a tall, nervous-looking man in a white coat. Camilla gasped. She tried to stand up, but her dress got caught on the chair. "No," she whispered. "This," Elena announced to the room, "is Dr. Eris. He is the private physician for the Vance family. He has been treating Camilla for years." "I can't discuss patient confidentiality," the doctor stammered, looking at Damon, who held a thick legal file. "You can when there is a subpoena involved regarding financial fraud," Damon said loud enough for the press photographers in the corner to hear. "Fraud!" Beatrice screeched. "How dare you? Tell them, doctor," Elena said, "or we release the records of the payments Camilla made to you to forge the ultrasound." The room was deadly silent. "Miss Vance," the doctor looked at his shoes. "Miss Vance had a procedure 3 years ago, a hysterectomy, due to complications from a previous issue." The air was sucked out of the room. "A hysterectomy," Sterling whispered. He looked at Camilla. "But you're pregnant." "I saw the bump." Elena stepped closer to Camilla. "Stand up, Camilla." "No!" Camilla cried, tears streaming down her face. "Don't touch me! Stand up!" Elena's voice cracked like a whip. Camilla stood up, trembling. Elena reached out. Camilla tried to slap her hand away, but she was too slow. Elena grabbed the fabric of the dress around the stomach area and pulled. It wasn't flesh. It was a distinct foam-like resistance. A moon bump, a high-end prosthetic used by actresses. "It's fake," Elena said, looking Sterling dead in the eye. "There is no baby. There never was. She played you, Sterling. She played all of you." Sterling stared at the foam bump under the silk. His face crumpled. The reality of his situation crashed down on him. He had fired the genius behind his company, divorced his loyal wife, and alienated his investors, all for a foam pad and a lie. "Why?" Sterling croaked, looking at Camilla. "Because we needed the money." Camilla screamed, her facade breaking into ugly, desperate sobs. "Daddy is going to jail. We have nothing. You were supposed to save us." I have nothing either," Sterling yelled back. "I spent the last of the reserves on this ring, on this party. Oh, it gets better," Elena interrupted, enjoying the show. "Camilla didn't just lie about the baby. She's been funneling the wedding planning money Sterling gave her directly into her father's offshore defense fund. $2 million, Sterling. Stolen right from under your nose while you were busy mocking me." The crowd began to whisper. Phones were out. This was going viral in real time. Beatrice looked like she was having a stroke. She turned on Camilla, grabbing her by the shoulders. "You little witch. You lied to a Blackwood. You're broke, too," Camilla spat back, shoving Beatrice away. "Everyone knows it. Elena owns you." Beatrice stumbled back, landing hard on the steps of the dais. Her pearls scattered across the floor. Elena stood in the center of the chaos. The Blackwoods were screaming at the Vances. The guests were fleeing. The photographers were flashing away. Elena walked over to Sterling. He was sitting on the steps, his head in his hands. "You wanted a twist, Sterling," she whispered. "You wanted excitement. You got it." "Elena." He looked up, tears in his eyes. "Elena, please. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Can we fix this? I'll fire her. I'll sue her. Just come back. The company needs you. I need you." Elena looked at him with pure pity. "The man I married died a long time ago. You're just a husk with a checkbook, and now even the checkbook is empty." She turned to leave. "Wait!" Beatrice screamed from the floor, trying to stand up with dignity. "You can't leave us like this. We're family." Elena stopped. She looked back at the mother-in-law who had toasted to her divorce. "Family." Elena laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Family doesn't cheer when you're in pain, Beatrice. Family doesn't treat people like disposable employees. You fired me. Now I'm firing you." "From what?" Beatrice sneered. "You have no authority over this family." Elena pulled a red envelope from her purse, matching her dress. She tossed it onto Beatrice's lap. "Open it," Elena said. "It's an eviction notice. You have 24 hours to vacate the Hamptons estate. Protocol 0 is complete." Elena walked out of the ballroom, leaving the Blackwoods in the ruins of their own making. The silence that followed her was heavy, broken only by the sound of Camilla weeping, and the click of cameras capturing the fall of an empire. The eviction of the Blackwood family was not a private affair. Because Elena had tipped off the press, news vans were lined up outside the iron gates of the Hamptons estate the next morning. It was raining a cold, miserable sleet that turned the immaculate lawn into mud. Inside the mansion, the scene was apocalyptic. Movers hired by Elena's firm were efficiently packing boxes. They weren't being gentle. Beatrice sat in her favorite armchair in the drawing room, clutching a porcelain dog. She refused to move. "You can't do this," Beatrice muttered to the sheriff's deputy standing by the door. "I am Beatrice Blackwood. My grandfather built this house." "And your son mortgaged it to a shell company that foreclosed on it, ma'am," the deputy said politely but firmly. "The deed belongs to Aurora Consulting. You have to go." "Where will I go?" she whispered. I have no friends. It was true. In the 24 hours since the baby shower disaster, Beatrice's phone had gone silent. The country club revoked her membership due to unpaid dues, another consequence of frozen assets. Her best friends were suddenly busy or vacationing in St. Bart's. The social hierarchy of New York was brutal. When you smelled of failure, you were quarantined. Sterling was in the hallway arguing with Preston. "You idiot!" Preston shouted, shoving his brother. "You lost the trust fund? You lost the house. I have to move into a condo in Jersey because of you." "Shut up, Preston!" Sterling yelled back. "You never worked a day in your life. If you had helped at the company instead of partying, maybe we wouldn't be here. Both of you out," the foreman of the moving crew shouted. "We're changing the locks in 10 minutes. Elena pulled up the driveway in her modest sedan. She didn't buy a flashy car. She didn't need to. She parked right in front of the fountain. She stepped out holding a large umbrella. Damon stood beside her holding the final paperwork. Beatrice saw her through the window and ran out the front door, ignoring the rain ruining her silk blouse. "You!" Beatrice screamed, pointing a shaking finger. "You did this! You planned this, you vindictive little snake!" Elena stood calm under her umbrella. "I didn't plan for Sterling to cheat Beatrice. I didn't plan for you to cheer. I just planned for the possibility that you were exactly who I thought you were." "I'll sue you!" Beatrice shrieked. "I'll tell everyone you stole our company." "I didn't steal it," Elena said, motioning to Damon. Damon stepped forward. "Actually, Mrs. Blackwood Elena bought the debt legally. And regarding the company, the shareholders voted this morning. Sterling has been removed as CEO for gross negligence and reputational damage. The board has appointed a new interim CEO." "Who?" Sterling asked, stepping out into the rain, looking defeated. "Me," Elena said. Sterling's jaw dropped. But you hate us." "I hate what you became," Elena said. "But I love the work. I built that code, I built that team. The board knows I'm the only one who can bring the government contract back. So they gave me the keys." Elena walked up the steps, forcing Beatrice and Sterling to step back. She looked at the massive oak doors where just 3 months ago she had been kicked out into the snow. "I'm offering you a deal," Elena said, turning to face them. Hope flickered in Sterling's eyes. "A deal, you mean? We can stay—" "No," Elena said firmly. "You can never stay here again. This house is being sold. The proceeds will go to pay off the creditors and the employees you tried to stiff." "Then what's the deal?" Beatrice asked, shivering. "I have set up a small trust," Elena said. "It pays a modest monthly stipend, enough for a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens and groceries. It's more than you deserve. But I'm doing it because, unlike you, I don't find joy in seeing people starve." "Queens," Beatrice looked horrified. "I won't do it. I'd rather die." "Then starve," Elena said, turning her back. "The offer expires when I walk through these doors." "Wait!" Sterling cried. He grabbed Beatrice's arm. "Mother, shut up. We have nothing. Take the money." Beatrice slumped. The fight went out of her. She looked at the mansion, then at Elena, the woman she had mocked for her cheap clothes and common background. That woman was now the only thing standing between her and homelessness. "Fine," Beatrice whispered, her voice breaking. "We take it." "Good," Elena said. "Damon will handle the paperwork. Goodbye, Sterling. Goodbye, Beatrice." Elena walked into the mansion and closed the heavy oak doors. Inside the house was quiet. The toxic noise of the Blackwood family was gone. Elena walked to the dining room. The long table where they had humiliated her was empty. She sat at the head of the table, Beatrice's spot. She took a deep breath. It didn't feel like revenge anymore. It felt like justice. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number for the Department of Defense. "Mr. Henderson," Elena said, her voice strong and clear. "This is Elena Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Holdings. I'm ready to renegotiate." Outside in the rain, the Blackwood family piled into a taxi, leaving behind the golden cage they had built, driven out by the very woman they thought they had broken. 2 years had passed since the eviction. The world had moved on, as it always does. The scandal of the fake baby and the Blackwood bankruptcy had been tabloid fodder for months, but eventually the news cycle churned and new scandals took their place. For Elena, however, time had not just been a healer, it had been a rocket booster. She sat in her corner office at Blackwood Holdings, now rebranded as Phoenix Systems. The view was the same one Sterling used to look out of when he thought he was a god, but the office felt different. The heavy masculine mahogany and leather were gone, replaced by sleek glass cream-colored wool and modern art. It was light-airy and intimidatingly efficient. Elena checked her watch. It was December 24th, Christmas Eve. "Mr. Thorne is here," her assistant buzzed. Damon walked in looking older, but just as sharp. He was now the general counsel for the company. "Merry Christmas, boss. The acquisition of the logistics firm in Seattle just closed. You are officially the head of the largest logistics tech company on the East Coast." Elena smiled, signing the final document on her desk. "Good. Send the staff home early, Damon. Bonus checks have been distributed. Everyone got 15%. Damon nodded. "They love you, Elena. You know, turnover is at an all-time low. It turns out treating people with respect is a good business model." "Who knew?" Elena said dryly. She stood up and walked to the window. Snow was falling on New York City. It looked beautiful from up here, but she knew that down on the street it was cold and slushy. "Have you heard from them?" Elena asked quietly. She didn't need to specify who. Damon sighed. "I wasn't going to mention it until after the holidays, but yes, there was an incident." Elena turned. "What kind of incident?" "Sterling was arrested last night," Damon said. "Drunk and disorderly. He tried to crash the Vance family Christmas party at the Ritz. He was screaming for Camilla." Elena felt a mixture of pity and disgust. "Camilla Vance is in Europe, isn't she?" "Hiding out in Monaco looking for her next victim," Damon confirmed. "But Sterling, he can't let it go. He's obsessed. He thinks if he can just talk to her, he can fix it. He's living in a fantasy world." "And Beatrice, she's in the apartment in Queens," Damon said. "Our contact says she spends most of her days writing letters to old society friends who never write back. She's isolated. The neighbors hate her because she complains about their cooking smells in the hallway." Elena looked back at the snow. "Bail him out, Damon." Damon frowned. "Elena, no. He doesn't deserve it." "I know," Elena said, "but it's Christmas, and I want to see him. Just once. I need to know that the ghost is truly dead." 2 hours later, a black sedan pulled up to the curb of a dingy precinct in Lower Manhattan. Elena stepped out, wrapped in a white cashmere coat that cost more than Sterling's car used to. Sterling Blackwood walked out of the station doors. He looked like a ruin of a man. His hair was thinning and unkempt. He wore a cheap, ill-fitting coat, and his face was puffy from cheap alcohol. He squinted against the streetlights, looking confused, until he saw her. "Elena," he croaked. She stood 5 feet away, the distance feeling like an ocean. "Get in the car, Sterling. I'll give you a ride home." He hesitated, a flash of his old pride warring with his current desperation. Desperation won. He slid into the leather back seat of the luxury car, the same kind of car he used to drive now, chauffeured by his ex-wife's employee. The drive to Queens was silent for a long time. Sterling stared at the leather interior, his hands shaking. "You look good," he finally said. His voice was small. "I am good," Elena replied evenly. "I saw the Forbes article," Sterling said. "Top 40 under 40. They called you the tech titan. They didn't mention me." "Why would they?" Elena asked. "You haven't been part of the company for 2 years." "I built that company." Sterling snapped a sudden flare of anger. "My grandfather built it. Your grandfather built a hardware store," Elena corrected him. "Your father turned it into a logistics firm. I turned it into a tech giant. You just signed the checks and drank the wine." Sterling slumped against the door. "It's not fair. She ruined me, Elena. Camilla. She took everything." "You let her," Elena said. "You held the door open for her while she robbed you." "I thought she loved me," Sterling whispered. I thought I was upgrading. That's what Mother said. She said you were sturdy, but Camilla was spectacular. And now I stock shelves at a pharmacy." Sterling laughed bitterly. Sterling Blackwood. "Sterling, stocking diapers and aspirin. People recognize me sometimes. They take pictures. They put them on the internet." The car pulled up to a grim brick apartment complex in Queens. It was raining sleet now. The building had peeling paint and bars on the first-floor windows. "We're here," Elena said. Sterling didn't move. He looked at her, his eyes wet. "Elena, is there any chance I've changed? I've learned my lesson. I miss you. Not the money. I miss you. I miss how you used to organize my day. I miss how safe I felt with you." Elena looked at him, searching for any spark of affection in her own heart. She found nothing, just a dull gray indifference. "You don't miss me, Sterling," she said softly. "You miss having a mother. You miss having a manager. You want someone to fix your life again, but I'm not a mechanic anymore." "I can change," he begged, reaching for her hand. She pulled back sharply. "No, you can't, because you still blame Camilla. You still blame the world. You haven't taken responsibility for the fact that you handed me those divorce papers on Christmas morning. You broke the seal, Sterling. You let the demons out." She signaled the driver to unlock the doors. "Goodbye, Sterling," she said. He got out slowly, the cold wind hitting him. He stood on the sidewalk, looking small and pathetic against the backdrop of the towering city. As the car pulled away, Elena didn't look back. She picked up her phone. "Damon. I'm here." "Cancel the monthly stipend," Elena said. There was a pause on the line. "Completely?" "No," Elena said. "Keep paying for the rent and the utilities. I don't want them homeless, but cut the cash allowance. If he's stocking shelves, he can buy his own booze. I'm done funding his self-pity." "Understood," Damon said. "Oh, and Elena, there's one more thing. A visitor is waiting for you at the office. Someone who says he knows you." "Who?" "Gabriel Vance." Elena's blood ran cold. Gabriel Vance, Camilla's older brother. The one member of the Vance family who had stayed out of the tabloids. He was known as the White Sheep of the family, a serious investment banker based in London who had publicly disowned his father and sister years ago. "What does he want?" Elena asked. "He says he has something that belongs to you." Elena walked into her office, her heart beating a little faster than usual. Sitting on her white sofa was a man who looked strikingly like Camilla. The same blonde hair, the same sharp jaw, but his eyes were different. They were kind, tired, and serious. Gabriel Vance stood up when she entered. He was holding a small velvet box. "Mrs. Blackwood," he said. His voice was deep, lacking the shrill affectation his sister had. "Or is it Ms. Razi now?" "Elena is fine," she said, keeping her distance. I assume you're here to sue me, or perhaps to beg for money like the rest of your family. Gabriel winced. I deserve that, but no, I'm here to apologize. Apologize? Elena crossed her arms. My father and sister, they are like a cancer, Gabriel said, looking pained. I cut them off 10 years ago, but I recently found out that before the baby shower incident, my sister stole something from your home. She took it during a dinner party weeks before the divorce. Gabriel held out the velvet box. Elena stepped forward and opened it. Inside sat a brooch. It wasn't diamond or ruby. It was a simple silver circle with a pearl in the center. It had belonged to Elena's grandmother. It was the one item she hadn't been able to find when she packed her boxes. She had assumed it was lost in the chaos. She pawned it, Gabriel said. I have a standing alert for family heirlooms appearing in pawn shops. I recognized the description from the police report you filed years ago. I bought it back. Elena picked up the brooch, her thumb tracing the silver. Tears, hot and unexpected, pricked her eyes. This piece of jewelry meant more to her than the entire Blackwood estate. Why? Elena asked, looking up at him. Why bring it back? Because my family took enough from you, Gabriel said. I wanted to give something back, and I wanted to meet the woman who finally beat them. You're a legend in London, Elena. The woman who outsmarted the sharks. Elena looked at Gabriel. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of interest that had nothing to do with business. Thank you, she said softly. Would you like a drink? It is Christmas Eve, after all. Gabriel smiled, and it transformed his face. I would love one. 1 year later. The scene was the same, but the context had shifted entirely. It was Christmas morning at the Blackwood estate in the Hamptons, but it wasn't the Blackwood estate anymore. The sign on the gate now read the Rossi Foundation. Elena had bought the house back, but she didn't live in it. She couldn't. The ghosts were too loud. Instead, she had turned the massive mansion into a sanctuary, a retreat for women and children escaping high-conflict divorces and financial abuse. The ballroom where she had been humiliated was now a playroom filled with toys and laughter. The dining room where she was served divorce papers was now a communal kitchen where families cooked together. Elena walked through the halls carrying a mug of hot cocoa. She wasn't wearing a designer dress. She was wearing jeans and a thick wool sweater. Walking beside her was Gabriel. They weren't married. Elena wasn't sure she ever wanted to sign a government contract for love again, but they were partners in every sense of the word. He held her hand, his thumb rubbing her knuckles. We have a full house, Gabriel said, looking at the children running through the foyer. 30 families this Christmas. It's good, Elena smiled. Better than empty, echoing halls. Her phone buzzed. It was a notification from her private investigator. Subject: Beatrice Blackwood status update. Elena opened the message. It was a photo. It showed a hospital room. Beatrice was lying in a bed, looking frail and small. She was hooked up to a monitor. The text read, "She had a stroke last night. She's at St. Jude's. Prognosis is poor. She's asking for you." Elena stopped walking. Gabriel squeezed her hand. "What is it?" "Beatrice," Elena said. "She's dying." "Do you want to go?" Gabriel asked. "You don't have to." Elena thought about it. She thought about the cruelty, the cheers, the eviction. She thought about the woman who had tried to erase her existence. "Yes," Elena said. "I need to close the book." The hospital smelled of antiseptic and pine cleaner. Elena walked into the room alone. Beatrice was awake, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. When she saw Elena, she tried to lift her head, but she was too weak. "You came," Beatrice whispered. Her voice was a rasp. "I did," Elena said, standing at the foot of the bed. "Are you here to gloat?" Beatrice asked. Even dying, she had a sharp edge. "To see the witch dead." "No," Elena said calmly. "I'm here to tell you that you didn't win. But I didn't win either, Beatrice, because there was no game. That was your mistake. You thought life was a competition for status. You thought people were pieces on a board." Beatrice's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted the best for my son." "You destroyed your son," Elena said, not with malice but with brutal honesty. "You raised him to be weak. You taught him that money was a substitute for character. And now he's alone." "Is he coming?" Beatrice asked, a desperate hope in her voice. "He's in the waiting room," Elena lied. Sterling wasn't there. Sterling was currently in a rehab facility upstate that Elena was secretly paying for. He wasn't allowed visitors yet. But Elena decided to give the old woman one final mercy. "He loves you," Elena lied again. "He's just unable to be here right now." Beatrice closed her eyes, a tear tracking through the wrinkles on her cheek. "I'm scared, Elena. I have nothing. I'm leaving nothing behind." Elena looked around the sterile room. She reached into her purse and pulled out a photo. It was a picture of the mansion, now filled with children lights in every window, a real Christmas tree in the foyer. She placed the photo in Beatrice's hand. "You left this," Elena said. "The house you loved, it's full of life again. It's safe. I made it something good. Your legacy isn't the hate you spread, Beatrice. It's the good I was able to do because you forced me to find my strength." Beatrice looked at the photo. Her trembling finger traced the roof of her old home. She looked at Elena with an expression that might have been gratitude, or perhaps just relief. "You were always the strong one," Beatrice whispered. The machine next to the bed beeped rhythmically. Beatrice's breathing slowed. She clutched the photo to her chest. "Merry Christmas, Beatrice," Elena said softly. She turned and walked out. She didn't stay for the end. She didn't need to. Outside the hospital, snow was falling again. It was the thick, fluffy kind of snow that makes the world look clean and new. Gabriel was waiting by the car. He saw her face and knew it was over. He opened the door for her, but she paused. She looked up at the sky. 3 years ago, she had stood in the snow, broken, humiliated, with nothing but a phone and a desire for revenge. She had wanted to burn the world down. And she had. She had burned down the lies, the pretenses, the false dynasties. But looking at Gabriel and thinking of the 30 families safe and warm in her house, she realized that fire didn't just destroy. It cleared the ground for new things to grow. She took a deep breath of the cold, crisp air. It didn't smell like revenge anymore. It smelled like peace. "Ready to go home?" Gabriel asked. Elena smiled a real, full smile that reached her eyes. "Yes," she said. "Let's go home." She got into the car, and as they drove away, the sun began to break through the winter clouds, shining bright and blinding on the fresh white snow. And that is how Elena didn't just survive the Christmas betrayal, she rewrote the ending. She took the stones they threw at her and built an empire, while the family that cheered for her ruin ended up with nothing but their own bitterness. It's a brutal reminder. Be careful who you step on today, because they might be the ones holding the keys to your future tomorrow. What would you have done in Elena's shoes? Would you have helped Beatrice at the end, or left her alone? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of justice and karma, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss the next real-life drama. Merry Christmas and stay strong.